I've been a janitor at the hospital for years. The night shift has its own rhythm. It's an old building built in the 1980s. At night, the lights flicker and the silence wraps around me like a thick fog. I've heard strange noises before, but nothing like what happened a few nights ago that I started my shift cleaning the waiting room. It was around midnight, and I pushed my cart down the dimly lit corridor. The air felt heavy, and I was tired. The whispers caught my attention. I tried to convince myself that it was just the tired staff or maybe my imagination. But these whispers felt different. They sounded urgent. I stopped by room 202. The voices were clearer now. They sounded like children, but I shook my head to clear the thoughts. I knocked on the door, but there was no response. I felt uneasy but brushed it off. Night duties could play tricks on the mind. The following nights were the same. I found myself at room 202 again, hearing those murmurs. Each time, a chill ran down my spine as I approached the door. I wanted to knock, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I told myself it was just fatigue, but the flickering lights seemed to grow worse. Once, while wiping the floor, I glanced out the window. I thought I saw a shadow pass by, but when I looked again, nothing was there. My heart raced. I shook it off. I needed to focus. Then I heard laughter. It was high-pitched and echoed down the corridor. Pure laughter coming from the pediatrics wing. My stomach twisted. That wing had been empty. I walked toward it, calling out, "Is anyone there?" The laughter stopped. I reached the end of the hall, feeling a tingle of dread. The air was thick with tension. Suddenly, the whispers filled the space like a storm. They were frantic and pleading. My instinct screamed for me to leave, but curiosity pulled me in. I wanted to know what was happening. The door to room 202 was slightly open. I took a deep breath, caught his peek inside, but before I could touch the handle, I heard a voice behind me. "Mark, help us." I whipped around, but there was no one there. My hands shook, and I was frozen in place. My heart felt like it would jump out of my chest. I called out, "Hello? Is someone there?" Nothing. Just silence. Then it all went quiet. I stepped back, feeling the whispers fading away, replaced by a heavy silence that settled deep in my bones. I would never forget that moment. I could still hear them at night, always echoing in my thoughts. The children. Who were they? What do they want? Then I heard the whispers again, clearer than ever, and I realized they weren't just echoes of the past. I returned to work the next night, my heart still heavy with the memory of what I'd heard. I steeled myself, determined not to give in to fear. I had a job to do, and I pushed my cart down the familiar corridor once again. The lights flickered as I moved, and the air felt colder, more oppressive. This time, I avoided room 202. I focused on cleaning the waiting area, hoping the quiet would drown out the voices. But the harder I tried, the louder the whispers grew. I couldn't escape them. I felt them wrapping around me, tugging at my thoughts. "Help us," they pleaded. After finishing my shift in the waiting room, I took a deep breath and forced myself to walk toward the pediatrics wing. My heart raced with each step. As I approached the hallway, the laughter returned, echoing and bouncing off the walls. It felt like it was coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was maddening. "Is someone there?" I called, trying to sound brave. My voice was shaky. No response. I glanced toward room 202, the door still ajar. I felt a pull, a catastrophic urge to step inside. But my legs were heavy. I didn't want to know. I needed to distract myself. I moved deeper into the pediatrics wing instead. The laughter faded, replaced by the gentle hum of fluorescent lights. I turned the corner and stumbled into the playroom. Toys were scattered across the floor, but they hadn't been touched for a long time. A deep dread settled in my stomach. Why were they still here? As I stood there, I caught a glimpse of something in the corner, a small, tattered teddy bear sitting on a shelf. It looked so out of place. It was covered in dust, but I could see it had once been cared for. My heart clenched. I walked over and picked it up. That S when I noticed a name stitched into the bear's paw. Lucas. I was startled. It felt significant. I couldn't shake the feeling that somehow I was connected to this child. "Lucas?" I whispered into the quiet room. Just then, the air turned icy, and the flickering lights went out entirely. Darkness enveloped me. My senses heightened, Adrenaline surged through my veins. I fumbled for my phone to use as a flashlight. As the beam of light cut through the gloom, I turned around, scanning for movement. In the dark, I heard soft footsteps. My breath caught. "Who is there?" I shouted, trying to sound firm, but my voice cracked. My instinct screamed at me to run, but I stayed frozen, clutching the bear tightly. Then, from the shadows, came a whisper of familiar voice. "Mark, help us!" A flash of movement caught my eye, and I pointed the light in its direction. That's when I saw it. A figure, small and pale, standing at the far end of the room, staring back at me. I couldn't move. The room felt too small, too suffocating. I had to figure out who it was, what it wanted. But just as I took a step forward, the lights flickered back on, and the figure vanished. I was left alone with only the teddy bear and my racing heartbeat. I needed answers, and I needed them fast. What did this child want from me? And more importantly, was there something I could do to help? I stood there, breathless, gripping the teddy bear like a lifeline. My mind raced, trying to comprehend what had just happened. Who was the child? Why had they asked for my help? The bear was my only connection, but it also filled me with dread. I needed to find out more about Lucas. I shoved the bear into my cart and left the playroom. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting an unsettling glow. I kept my phone light trained forward, hesitant to look back. As I approached the nurse's station, I took a moment to steady myself. "Hey, Mark," a voice pulled me from my thoughts. It was Carla, one of the night nurses. "You okay? You look spooked." "Yeah, I hesitated. I didn't want to sound foolish talking about ghosts. I think I saw something in the playroom." Carla raised an eyebrow. "What kind of something? Just a light or maybe a shadow?" I muttered, feeling ridiculous. In a kid-esque voice. Her expression softened. Sometimes our minds play tricks on us, especially at night. I nodded, forcing a smile. But deep down, I felt it was more than just my imagination. "I'll be fine. Just tired, I guess." She didn't seem convinced, but let it go. I took a deep breath and decided to ask her about the hospital's past. "Do you remember a patient named Lucas? In pediatrics?" "Lucas?" Carla looked confused. "Can't say I do." "Why?" "Just curious. I found this bear with his name." I pulled it out of the cart. Her eyes widened as she stared at it. "That bear? I think I've seen it before. It's been here for years." "Years?" "Yeah, poor thing. It belonged to a kid who was really sick. He passed away a while back." My heart sank. An overwhelming sadness rushed over me. If this bear belonged to Lucas, how could I have run into his spirit? I couldn't just let this go. "Do you remember anything about him?" I pressed. She paused, her brow furrowing. "I remember he had a laugh that would light up the whole room. I think he used to keep us all smiling when he was here. He was so brave. The word resonated within me. Was that what I needed to be? Brave enough to face whatever it was that haunted this hospital? Suddenly, the lights flickered, plunging us into semi-darkness once more. I instinctively clutched the bear tighter. "Stay close," Carla whispered, her voice shaky. A loud crash came from the hallway, making us both jump. "What was that?" I asked, panic rising in my throat. Without answering, Carla peered out from behind the station. "I don't know," she murmured. "We should check it out." As we stepped into the dark hallway together, I felt a pull toward pediatric wing once again. My heart raced. I needed to know the truth about Lucas. It seemed like the answers were hidden just out of reach, waiting for me to venture further into the unknown. Then, from behind us, I heard a childish laughter. It echoed against the sterile walls, bright and haunting. Was it Lucas, reaching out to me once more? I turned to Carla, but she was already backing away, fear etched on her face. I felt the urge to follow the sound, despite the fear gripping my heart. "Mark," she whispered, "maybe we should go back." But it was too late. I knew I had to find out what lay ahead. I took a breath and stepped forward, drawn by that laughter. It was a chilling sound, yet somehow comforting, like a beacon in the dark. Carla hesitated, but finally followed me. I couldn't shake the feeling that Lucas was trying to show me something important. As we approached the entrance to the pediatric wing, the laughter faded, replaced by silence that felt even heavier. The air was thick, charged with a tension that sent shivers down my spine. I felt the teddy bear's worn fur brush against my fingers, grounding me. "Are you sure about this?" Carla murmured, her voice barely above a whispered. I nodded, though my heart thumped loudly in my ears. We stepped into the wing, the darkness swallowing us whole. The only light came from the occasional flicker overhead, casting ghostly shadows on the walls. I peered into the rooms, everything eerily still. "Something feels off," Carla said, glancing around. I agreed, but I had to push forward. I needed answers. "Let us just check the playroom again." Maybe before I could finish, a loud crash echoed from the end of the hall. We exchanged nervous glances, adrenaline coursing through my veins. Carla's grip on my arm tightened. "We should go back, Mark." But I couldn't. I needed to know what was happening. We crept towards the source of the noise, each step a battle with my fear. When we reached the end of the hallway, I spotted a door slightly ajar. My breath caught in my throat. It was the room where I had seen the light earlier. The laughter had come from there. I was sure of it. That I pushed the door open, and a rush of cold air enveloped us. Inside, I could make out shapes of toys scattered across the floor, remnants of a childhood that no longer echoed here. An old night light glimmered faintly in the corner, casting a soft glow. But my eyes were drawn to something else, a small figure woven into the fabric of shadows. "Mark, we should leave," Carla urged, her voice trembling. Ignoring her, I stepped further inside. That same sense of familiarity tugged at my heart. Just as I was about to call out, a soft voice floated through the air. "Help me, please." That voice, it was Lucas. I turned to Carla. "Did you hear that?" She nodded, pale as a sheet, but her eyes were wide and terrified. "We need to go." But I couldn't. "Luke," I stopped, realizing I might be losing my chance to connect with him. "Lucas, where are you?" In that moment, the air shifted, growing heavier. A shadow moved across the far wall, and with it came a sudden chill. I turned, expecting to see nothing but darkness. Instead, there was a fleeting glimpse of a small, lithe figure vanishing down another corridor. "Did you see that?" I gasped, adrenaline shooting through me. Carla's eyes darted back toward the door. "I don't want to be here anymore. Please, let us go." "No, I have to find out what he wants," I insisted, my resolve hardening. That I hesitated just a moment, but that laughter echoed again, stronger this time, taunting me to follow. I took a step into the hall, calling out to the darkness, "Lucas, wait." But just then, the lights flickered once more, plunging us into pitch black. I felt a wave of panic rise. "Mark!" Carla screamed, grasping my wrist. Suddenly, everything went quiet. Then came the sound of footsteps, small, light but purposeful. They were coming closer. "What is happening?" Carla gasped, but I had my eyes locked on the darkness ahead, determined to find out what awaited us. The footsteps grew louder, echoing in the silent hallway. I strained to see anything, but the darkness wrapped around me like a heavy blanket. Then, just as suddenly as it had fallen silent, the laughter returned to soft, tinkling sound that danced around us, seemingly coming from every direction. "Mark, please." Carla tugged at my arm, her terror palpable. "We need to leave now." But I couldn't turn back. "No, Lucas needs me." My voice felt small against the overwhelming void. I took a cautious step forward, peering into the murky shadows. "Where are you?" I called out, desperation creeping into my voice. To my left, a faint glimmer caught my eye. I moved toward it, drawn like a moth to a flame. It was a small cell phone lying on the floor, its screen cracked but still glowing. I picked it up, feeling a strange sense of déjà vu. It looked so familiar. "What are you doing?" "We have to go," Carla urged again, but I was too far gone. I unlocked the phone with a simple swipe, and my breath hitched. Open on the screen were photos of Lucas smiling, playing with friends, snapshots of a life full of promise. But what made my heart race was the last image. It was a blurry photo taken in the pediatric wing just moments before his disappearance. "Mark, look out!" Carla's panic shout pulled me from my thoughts. I glanced up just in time to see a shadow spring at me from the darkness. I instinctively stepped back, tripping over a toy. I fell hard on the floor, the breath knocked out of me. "Get away from him!" Carla screamed. I scrambled to my knees, the phone slipping from my grasp and clattering to the side. Fear clawed at my throat as I looked up to see a small silhouette. It was Lucas, but not quite. His eyes were wide and dark, like voids pulling me in. "Help me," he pleaded again, his voice slightly distorted. "Lucas?" I whispered, paralyzed by confusion and dread. Suddenly, the room went icy cold. I could see Carla shivering beside me, her wide eyes darting around. I wanted to reach out to Lucas, but the fear of what he had become held me frozen. Then he stepped back, revealing something beyond him, an endless expanse of darkness, swirling and shifting as if alive. Shapes twisted within it, teasing the edges of my sanity. "Mark, we have to go. Now," Carla shouted, shaking my shoulder. Realizing I wouldn't have much time, I reached for the phone again. "I'll be right there," I promised, though I wasn't sure if I was talking to Carla or Lucas. I stumbled one step forward, and the shadow's core surged forward, as if they were trying to swallow me whole. "Please." Lucas's voice quaked, drawing me even closer, but before I could react, everything turned pitch black again. My heart raced, every instinct telling me to run. I heard Carla's breath quickening, her panic infectious. "Mark, please," she cried, the urgency piercing through the dark. "Someone else coming." Then, without warning, piercing white light flooded the hallway, stunning me. I shielded my eyes just as I heard a distant door crash open. The laughter cut off abruptly, replaced by a heavy silence and the sound of hurried footsteps approaching. Panic surged in my veins. Whoever was coming, I had to act quickly. I suddenly remembered something. I glanced one last time at the space where Lucas had been, hoping he would return. But he was gone. "Come on," I yelled, grabbing Carla's hand. We sprinted towards the nearest exit, the laughter still echoing in my mind. What had just happened? And who or what was drawing Lucas into the shadows? The answers felt closer than ever, but time was slipping away. We burst through the door, my heart pounding in my chest. The hallway beyond was deserted, sterile, and cold, lit by flickering fluorescent lights. I glanced at Carla, who was still gripping my arm tightly, her face pale and drawn. "What was that?" she gasped, trying to catch her breath. "I don't know," I replied, scanning the corridor for any sign of danger. The laughter still danced on the edges of my mind, a haunting echo. "But we need to find Lucas. We can't leave him." "Mark," she said, urgency lacing her words. "He didn't look right. That wasn't our Lucas." The memory of his dark eyes sent a shiver down my spine. "I know, but he called for me. He needs help." I took a deep breath, forcing myself to focus. "We have to check the pediatric wing. It's where the photo was taken." Carla hesitated, but nodded reluctantly. "Okay, let us just be careful." We moved quickly, glancing over our shoulders as we made our way through the empty halls. I felt the weight of the shadows pressing in on us, a quiet menace lurking just out of sight. The buzz of the fluorescent lights was jarring, the only sound accompanying our hurried footsteps. As we approached the entrance to the pediatric wing, the atmosphere shifted. The air felt thicker, charged with an unspoken dread. I pushed the door open, and the sight before us was unnerving. Toys scattered across the floor, as if playtime had been abruptly interrupted. The silence was deafening. Mark, Carla whispered, her voice trembling. "Look," I pointed toward the far end of the room. A faint glow illuminated a corner where something flickered like a television. I stepped closer, drawn in by a bizarre compulsion. What greeted us was a small screen turned toward the wall, broadcasting old footage of children laughing and playing. My gut twisted as I recognized Lucas in the footage, younger and full of life. The images flickered, distorting as faces changed, overlapping and blending into a chaotic montage of frozen moments. "Are you seeing this?" I asked, my voice choked with disbelief. "What is this?" Carla said, inching back, uncertainty etched on her face. "It doesn't feel right." Before I could answer, the screen shifted again and a familiar face appeared. It was a doctor, one I recognized from Lucas's recent visits. He looked directly into the camera, his voice a distorted echo. "Come find us. We are waiting for you." I felt my blood run cold. Who was he talking to? And why did he sound so urgent? "Mark, we should go." Carla's eyes were wide with fear. "No," I said, my resolve hardening. "I have to know what this means." As if timed with my words, the screen went black, and the laughter returned louder, more chaotic than before. Carla grabbed my arm, her grip tightening. "Someone's coming." She hissed that I looked back into the hallway. The footsteps we had heard earlier were returning, louder, closer. They carried an unmistakable sense of purpose, not the frantic rush of someone looking for help. We needed to hide. "Over here." I pulled her toward a nearby storage closet, hoping we could find some cover. Just as we squeezed inside, the door creaked open wider, and we held our breath in the dark. Then everything went silent. "Do they pass?" Carla whispered next to me, fear radiating off her. I shook my head, unsure. We were trapped, and I still hadn't found Lucas. Just when I thought it couldn't get worse, I noticed something glimmer in the corner of the closet. That when I saw it. The same cell phone I had found earlier. But this one was ringing. The sound of the phone vibrating against the hard floor made my heart race even faster. I reached for it instinctively, but then paused, glancing at Carla. Her eyes were wide, pleading. "Mark, don't." She whispered, but it was too late. I picked up the phone and stared at the screen. The caller ID was blocked. "What do I do?" I asked, the urgency clawing at my gut. "Just let it ring," she urged, but I couldn't resist the pull. Something about it felt important. I pressed the answer button, bringing the phone to my ear. "Hello," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. First, there was nothing but static. Then a voice broke through, distorted and echoing. "Mark, help me." "Lucas?" I gasped, my hands trembling. "Come back," the voice replied, growing more frantic. "I'm scared." "They're here." I glanced at Carla, who shook her head, her fear evident. "This isn't right. We should go now." But my mind was already spinning. I couldn't leave him. "Where are you?" I pressed, desperate for details. "Pediatric ward room 306, came the breathless reply. And then the line went dead. I lowered the phone, my heart pounding in my ears. "He's in 306. He needs us." "What if it's a trap?" Carla said, eyes darting toward the door. "We could be walking into danger." "Maybe," I admitted, "but what if he really is in trouble? What if we're his only chance?" Carla looked torn, but deep down I could see her hope clinging to the same thread as mine. "We have to be smart," she finally said, swallowed by uncertainty. "If we're going, we need to stick together and move fast." I nodded, gathering my courage. "Okay, let us do this." We crept out of the closet and into the hallway, the air still thick with dread. The echo of our footsteps felt louder than before, amplified by the silence enveloping us. I needed to keep my focus on Lucas. "Room 306 is at the end of the hall," I began, but stopped short. The laughter was back, even louder and more chaotic, swirling around us like a specter. "What is that?" Carla gasped, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "Just keep moving," I urged, the sounds clawing at my nerves. As we approached the door to room 306, it loomed ahead, an ominous portal. The laughter crescendoed into shrieks, a cacophony of children's voices mixed with something far darker. I reached for the handle, my heart pounding like a distant drum. And then, without warning, the door swung open. The room was empty, but the air was electric, charged with tension. I stepped inside, peering into the dim light. It was just a typical hospital room, but there was no sign of Lucas. The bed was neatly made, and the curtains fluttered slightly in the draft. I turned to Carla, panic gripping me. "Where is he?" Then, from the corner of my eye, I noticed something flash beneath the bed. I dropped down onto one knee, heart racing, and reached for it. It was a faded blue teddy bear, its button eye missing, stained as if it had seen more than just the usual hospital visits. I held it up, and in that moment the laughter stopped. The silence slammed down around us, leaving an eerie quiet. "Mark, we have to go now," Carla urged, pulling me back to reality. But as I turned to leave, I saw something in the reflection of the window. A figure standing just outside the door, watching us that I froze, and a chill ran through me. Then I heard it again, a voice calling my name, this time not from the phone, but clear and loud, "Mark." I swung around, heart pounding in my chest. The figure outside the door was gone, leaving only shadows in the dim hallway. "Did you see that?" I whispered to Carla, my voice trembling. "What?" she asked, brows furrowing in confusion. "What did you see?" I opened my mouth to explain, but the laughter started again, more chaotic and unsettling than before. It throbbed in my ears, and I felt a growing sense of urgency. "We have to go," I said, feeling sweat trickle down my back. Carla nodded, still glancing nervously at the door. "Did that voice say your name?" "It didn't sound like Lucas." "I know." Panic filled every corner of my mind. "But it came from here. We can't just leave him." I clutched the teddy bear tighter, as if it would lead me to Lucas. Suddenly, the lights flickered, plunging the room into darkness. My heart dropped. "What is happening?" "I don't know." Carla's voice trembled. "We need to find a way out." Just then, the door swung shut with a loud bang. Carla gasped, instinctively grabbing my arm. "We're trapped." I tried to push the door open, but it wouldn't budge. "Come on," I shouted, panic rising. "Lucas is counting on us." The laughter grew louder, echoing off the walls. I turned back toward the room, searching for any sign of Lucas. "We need to look for him," I said, desperation creeping in. "Mark, this is insane," Carla cried. "He is not here. Let us get out." "No, there has to be something." I bent down and looked under the bed again, hoping for any clue. Just the teddy bear stared back, a witness to whatever horrors had transpired in this room. But I felt a strange pull, and panic rose as I suddenly noticed something else. Bits of paper scattered across the floor, partially hidden in the shadow. I grabbed the papers, my hands shaking. As I unfolded one of them, I could barely make out Lucas's handwriting. "Help scared, dark," the words sent chills through me. They were scribbled hastily, almost like frantic thoughts. "Mark," Carla's voice broke through my focus. "We're running out of time." But I couldn't stop. "Look," I said, holding up the paper for her to see. "This could be a message. He.S. trying to tell us something." That S when I noticed something on the back of the paper, an address. It was smeared, but a few words were clear. Near the old playground. Before I could process the significance, the lights flickered back on. In that moment of clarity, I saw the reflection again of a blurred figure appearing in the glass just behind Carla. My breath hitched as I pointed. "Behind you," I shouted, but it was too late. Everything happened in a flash. The figure lunged, and the laughter erupted into screams as chaos erupted around us. Then everything went dark. I jolted awake, gasping for breath. The room was flooded with light, and I scrambled up, disoriented. My heart raced as I realized I was alone. No Carla, no laughter, just silence, broken only by the hum of fluorescent lights overhead. Where were we? I looked around, taking in my surroundings. It looked like a hospital room, stark and sterile. My hands were clammy as I swung my legs over the side of the bed and stood, wobbling slightly on my feet. I didn't remember getting here. "Carla?" I called, my voice weak. No answer, just the creeping unease curling in my stomach. Suddenly, a noise echoed down the hallway, a soft shuffling followed by a low, unidentifiable sound. I felt a chill creep on my spine. I had to find Carla. I needed to know where Lucas was. I took a deep breath and stepped cautiously toward the door. The hallway stretched out before me, dimly lit and disquieting. I knew I had to move. I opened the door slowly, wincing as it creaked. With each step, the shuffling grew louder, as if something or someone was moving closer. "What is happening?" I muttered under my breath, fighting back panic. I turned the corner, and the sight made my stomach drop. A figure stood hunched over, obscured by the shadows. "Mark," it called, the voice distant and hollow, like echoes bouncing off the walls. I squinted, the recognition hitting me like a punch. It sounded like Lucas. "Help me, Lucas," I shouted, taking a step forward. My feet moved instinctively towards him, but the figure shifted, revealing a face plastered with a frozen grin. It was not Lucas. Just as I realized the danger, the lights flickered, and the figure lunged at me. My instincts kicked in, and I darted back, slamming the door shut. My heart raced as I leaned against it, hearing the thud of whatever it was against the wood. "Mark!" Carla's voice broke through the noise, desperate. "Carla!" I yelled, pushing away from the door to find her. "Where are you?" "I'm over here," she cried from around a corner. Relief flooded through me as I moved toward her voice, but my hope faded as I saw her face twisted with fear. "What happened back there?" I asked, panting. "I don't know. It just attacked me. It wasn't T. Lucas. He gone." "Gone?" Panic overwhelmed me. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. One minute he was there, then something else came after me." She was shaking, eyes wide and frantic, the familiar sounds of laughter echoing faintly in our ears. It was like a haunting lullaby drifting through the air. "We have to keep moving," I said, pushing down my own fear. I remembered the address on the paper. "We need to find that playground." But before I could decide what to do next, the lights flickered violently, then went out completely. Everything went silent, as if the world had paused. "Mark?" Carla whispered, and I could hear the trepidation in her voice. Then, just above the silence, I heard the laughter again, closer this time. It crept toward us, slithering through the darkness like a living thing. There was no time. We had to escape. I gripped her hand tightly, and we lunged into the unknown. We stumbled through the darkness, breathless and terrified. My heart raced with each echoing footstep behind us, growing louder and more frantic. The laughter twisted my mind, a chaotic melody that drove me to keep moving. I focused on the address, the playground, clinging to the thought as if it were a lifeline. "Over here," I called to Carla, trying to steer us toward an exit. As we dashed through the hallways, the dim emergency lights sporadically flickered, illuminating shadows that danced along the walls. Every time I glanced back, the laughter seemed to erupt like a storm, gaining momentum. Suddenly, Carla tripped, sending us both sprawling to the ground. "Get up," I urged, urgency spilling over into panic. She quickly recovered, and we pushed off the floor, adrenaline kicking us into motion again. "Which way?" she gasped, glancing around in the dim light. The flickering overhead made it hard to see. "I don't even know where we are. Just stick close. We can't stop now." My feet pounded down the corridor, finally finding a door labeled emergency exit. I yanked it open, and we slipped through, tumbling down a set of stairs that spiraled into darkness. We landed hard on the gravel outside, gasping for breath. The cool night air felt almost surreal after the oppressive atmosphere we just escaped. For a brief moment, we just stood there, collecting ourselves, the laughter finally fading into the distance. But in that silence, unease washed over me. "Carla, we can't stop. We need to find a playground. It's the only lead we have." "Mark," her voice wavered. You heard the laughter. It was as if they were playing. "What if this is just the beginning? What if we were never supposed to leave?" I forced myself not to think about it. "He needs us," I insisted, the urgency for Lucas overriding everything else. As we stepped into the cool glow of the streetlights, I spotted the old playground just down the street. It looked abandoned and eerie under the moonlight, swings swaying in an unseen breeze, the slide appearing like a towering specter against the backdrop of darkness. "There!" I pointed. We hurried forward, but the hairs on my arms stood on end as I sensed something watching us. Each step we took felt heavier, a weight of dread pressing down. The laughter started again, soft at first, then growing louder, echoing throughout the park like a sinister taunt. "Mark, I don't think we should," Carla began, but I shook my head, already on a mission. "We have to know what happened here." The playground equipment creaked as we approached, casting long shadows across the ground. The atmosphere felt charged, like static before a storm. With each movement, I could feel the tension rising, a palpable energy swirling around us. "Why are the lights flickering?" Carla whispered, glancing around. "The spirits could be lingering here." My voice trailed off, uncertain. Did I truly believe that, or was I just grasping at reasons? I looked at her, trying to convey the urgency without revealing my own buried fear. "This is where he was last seen." As we reached the center of the playground, I spotted something on the ground, a broken toy, half hidden beneath the slide. My heart thudded in my chest. I bent down to pick it up, recognizing it as Lucas's old toy, a small truck with the name Lucas etched into the side. Suddenly, I felt a chill sweep over us. "Do you feel that?" I asked, my breath escaping a gasp. Carla nodded slowly. "It's colder now." The laughter erupted again, louder than ever. It surrounded us, encasing us in an unnatural friend. My mind raced. Did Lucas still need our help? Or had something darker claimed him entirely? At the very edge of my vision, I glimpsed shadowy figures weaving around the play structures. "Mark, let us leave." Carla grabbed my arm, her panic contagious, but something pulled me in. "No, I can't just go," I shouted into the echoing darkness. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw shapes forming amongst the shadows. Children. They stood there, bright-eyed and smiling, their faces tinged with an unsettling darkness. "Help us," they whispered in unison. Before I could process the scene before me, the ground began to tremble beneath our feet. "Run!" I shouted, as the playground seemed to come alive, the swings swinging wildly, the slide crackling with energy. The laughter twisted into a cacophony, shrieks intermingling with ghostly giggles that we bolted back toward the entrance of the park, but it felt as if the shadows were closing in. I glanced back once more, and for a moment, I saw Lucas's small figure standing still, his eyes reflecting fear and hope. "Mark!" He beckoned, extending a frail hand toward me. "Lucas!" I yelled, reaching out for him, but the shadows surged forth, enveloping my vision in darkness. With everything inside me, I pushed through, the world collapsing in sound and fury, hurtling towards something indistinct. But just as it seemed like the chaos would consume us entirely, I was jolted back, my feet suddenly back on grass, no playground, no shadows, and I was standing in the hospital's parking lot, Carla by my side, gasping. The laughter faded as a cool wind whisked by, leaving an echo of children's spirits lingering in the night. "What happened?" I asked, bewildered, my heart still racing. "I think we made it," Carla whispered, glancing around. But fear still danced behind her eyes, uncertainty clinging to the edges of her relief. "What about Lucas?" I murmured, recalling his desperate call for help. But before I could ponder that thought further, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and stared at the screen with disbelief that a message had appeared, a simple text, "Thank you." But who sent it? There were still so many questions, echoes of laughter that seemed both distant and near, circles of whispers that would haunt me every night. As we walked toward my car, I looked back at the hospital, unwilling to abandon the lingering feeling that it wasn't over yet. Could Lucas truly be free? Or would those shadows continue to echo with unanswered cries? Only time would reveal the truth. But one thing weighed heavily on my mind. I would never truly understand what kept calling for help. Only that some mysteries stretch across both realms, blurring the lines between the living and the lost.